Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all doing well. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about why you keep getting attracted to the same type of partner, whether it be a woman or a man. Why do you keep getting attracted to them, despite the fact that you keep telling yourself you're never going to date someone like that again, only to end up dating that exact same kind of person, right? So, why does this happen? This happens for a number of reasons. Uh, the majority of the reason why is because there's a program within your subconscious mind that is leading you towards that being the safest option. And so it's playing in your mind saying, oh, hey, we're trying time to choose a partner. Let's put on this program. Hey, look, we're looking for a partner. This is what we're looking for. It's the specific person that you may always be looking for. And a lot of the times it's going to be the person who's toxic, the person who doesn't treat you right, the person who cheats on you, the person who talks down to you, who's narcissistic, right? And unfortunately, that is the person that a lot of us or most of us are attracted to, especially when we're saying we're never going to date someone like that again. Now, for you, it might be slightly different, but you may still end up going to the same kind of person every time, and you may be wondering why that is. Why are they all similar? Why are they maybe like your parents if you haven't realized that? So we'll talk about that. And first, I think we need to touch on what the subconscious mind is, because if you don't understand that, then this might not make as much sense to you. So we have two parts of your mind, right? You have your conscious mind. The conscious mind is the part of your mind that has logical thinking, that can reject information, that can say, oh, this is good for me, this is not good for me. This is the part of your mind that says, I want to date someone new. Oh, I'm never going to date someone like that again, right? That's your conscious mind saying those things. Where on the other hand, your subconscious mind is the part of your mind that chooses to go back with the other person, because this part of your mind is not logical. It just runs off data, and it uses that data to create programs. And these programs, yes, are kind of like a computer program. So you can think of your subconscious mind like a supercomputer, because that's really what it is. It has super processing power. It takes in 11 million pieces of information per second, and what it's doing with this information is it's determining what the safest thing for you to do within your group, within your tribe, within society, based on everything that it's seen. So it's saying, okay, what's the most repetitive? What do I see the most other people doing? What do I see some authority figures doing? Like my parents, like a government official, like other things like that, right? So how come you are choosing maybe a toxic partner, an abusive partner? Well, it's likely because that's what your subconscious mind has been exposed to. And so that is what your subconscious mind thinks is the safest option. And so it's created this program, kind of like how computers have different programs you can click on, open, and run for when you need to do certain things. Like you need to open Discord, and right, and you open Discord and you can start to talk to people. You need to open Zoom so you can do a video chat with someone. You need to open Microsoft Word so you can type up a paper. And they all have different functions. They all have different purposes, but they all do something for you. Um, how, if they're good or bad, that's, based on someone's opinion, but the computer doesn't determine what's good or bad, right? It just says, okay, you want this program? I'll open the program. This is how we're going to do it. This is what I have built into me. I can run this, right? Same way goes for your subconscious mind. It just says, hey, this is the most common thing. I have the data for it. I have the program built already. Let's run this program. This is how I'm going to fit in with society. This is how I'm going to fit in with my family, with my greater tribe, is dating someone like this. So I really want you to consider maybe what your parents' relationship was like. And this might be a touchy subject, but if you are, keep going after someone who is abusive, a lot of the times it's because you saw it mimicked within your own parents' relationship. Or maybe if you didn't grow up with your parents, your aunt or uncle, or whoever you did grow up with, right? What kind of things did you see a lot of? That can be a very common place to where you're learning that. Or maybe you just learned, maybe your parents' relationship wasn't abusive, but maybe they were abusive towards you. And so you learned that being abused is the normal thing to do, right? Maybe they were verbally abusive to you. Maybe they actually hit you. right? So you learn that's where you get your love from. When you get hit, when you get disciplined, when you get talked down to, that is what your subconscious mind sees as love, and so then you're drawn to it, and you that's why you keep going after that kind of person. Um, so, or maybe you're going after someone who just is a heavy alcoholic all the time, right? Maybe you saw your parents drinking all the time. Maybe you saw your parents just always getting high, or always getting coked out, or whatever it may be, right? Your subconscious mind is saying, all right, if I date this person, I bring them home, will my family accept them? If I date this person and I bring them home, will they fit in with my greater cultural tribe? Will they fit in? Will they help me fit in? And sometimes you may be thinking, no, it won't help me fit in. My parents would hate that. But that's not the way your subconscious mind really thinks, right? Your subconscious mind thinks, well, they got in fights all the time. They were kind of abusive towards each other. They had very negative comments towards each other. Oh, they were abusive towards me. They spanked me. They hit me when I was growing up to teach me tough love. Oh, they talked down to me, right? So you learn that through them, unfortunately. And that's why the subconscious mind works, right? It's not logical. It's a very primitive part of the mind, but it's a very powerful part of the mind. And what you got to understand is 90 to 95% of your daily thoughts and actions are coming from the subconscious mind. Meaning that if you have these type of programs built into your subconscious mind and they're running all the time, then that means that 90 to 95% of the thoughts or actions are going to be coming from this part of the mind. And likely it's going to be very hard not to start to date someone like that again, right? So that's why you always see people going back into abusive relationships. Also, you see people always going back to those sorts of relationships because they already have that built in to their mind. They have that part built into their mind. And the more they're in those kind of relationships, the more that gets ingrained into them that this is the way it needs to be. And oftentimes that person talks them down and breaks their self-esteem, makes them think that they're not good enough for someone else, right? And then you start to get that fulfilling prophecy of, whoa, I'm not good enough. I don't deserve someone better. I'm lucky to have this person, and this person is just manipulating you. So I think a lot of people know that as narcissistic, right? Um, the same kind of thing happens when you're in, like, an abusive relationship or a narcissistic relationship. But also, have you heard of Stockholm syndrome? Stockholm syndrome is when someone falls in love with their captor or abuser. So it's pretty much the same thing as falling, being stuck in an abusive relationship, right? You are falling in love. You are attracted to someone who's abusing you, who's really treating you horribly. And I think the Stockholm syndrome first was identified, maybe it was farther back than this. I know there's a story of a bank robbery, and the bank robber was very abusive towards some of the people there, and some of the people actually started to defend him, and like try to hide and say that it wasn't his fault, even though he was very abusive towards them. And so that's where they first, at least from what I've heard, that's the first time they identified Stockholm syndrome. But we see it throughout these parts of life. And why might something like that, let's say someone wasn't attracted to anything like that, but that happens, well, why could that kind of event make it so someone's attracted to someone who is abusive towards them? Well, the way the subconscious mind works is it's very highly impacted by traumatic events, by highly emotional events, by events that have a lot of like memory, like vision, like you see it, you replay those in your mind, right? You that have that memory come back in your mind over and over. It's very traumatic. It has a lot of emotion behind it. Those things all really impact the subconscious mind. That's why often like victims and other people who have had very traumatic experiences, they have flashbacks to those moments. They have, from PTSD, they have flashbacks to those moments. They have things that make them go back to those moments because this part of the mind is replaying it because it was so highly burned into the subconscious mind that it created like a hypersensitive program. Um, the good news is that you can reprogram this part of the mind. So it's not all bad news, but this, understanding where it comes from is very important. So you got to look, and this requires you to be conscious, right? Because obviously everyone's different. Everyone has different reasons why they're maybe programmed. So it's up to you, if you're not going to be getting help from someone else, to be identifying where those programs may have came from. And it requires you to go back and to think. Oftentimes meditating, oftentimes just thinking back to, hey, where might this have come from? What was my child life like? And sometimes this stuff is repressed. We may not even remember some of the stuff. So there are ways to remember them. There are ways to go back and to get help and to do all of that. And we'll talk about those. Um, but back to, why you're choosing that type of partner. Well, because it's the safest option to do according to your subconscious mind. It's going to help you fit in, right? And it doesn't matter if it's choosing someone who is drunk, someone who spends all the money, someone who abuses you, someone who just fails you, and someone who is dependent on you. Like, are you a people pleaser? Are you someone who saves a lot of people? And you're always trying to go save someone else, right? Like, oh, I can fix him, I can help him, I can whatever, right? It might be that maybe you had to fix or save your parents. They were always drunk and you had to go save them. They were always a mess, and you had to go help them. You had to become the parent when you were an adult. That could be very likely why. Right? There's a lot of different reasons that this can be happening, but a lot of the times it's because you've been exposed to these things. So you've been exposed to these things and you've seen them throughout your life. Now, where are some other areas you can become exposed to this type of imagery, this type of programming? Well, what you need to know is that your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between fiction and reality. And you have these things called mirrored neurons, meaning that when you watch TV or you watch someone else do something, your mind is lighting up in the same way as if you were doing those things as well. That's why in scary movies, when something scary happens, you can get goosebumps, you can get scared, your heart starts to bump and to race, right? It starts to pound in your chest. And when you watch a sad movie, you start to cry. When you watch a funny movie, you start to laugh, right? It's because your subconscious mind does not know the difference between fiction and reality. It's lighting up. It has those mirror neurons, and so you are experiencing the same thing as what you're watching. And look at TV shows now. Look at movies nowadays. How many of them have broken relationships? How many of them have cheating and sex scandals and divorce and all these things, right? It's literally all around us. Like, there's so much trash television. There's so much negative programming within this within our society. It's pretty disgusting once you start to realize it and start to look at it. Like, a common show that I know a lot of women like is Grey's Anatomy. For any woman who is listening to this and has watched Grey's Anatomy or does currently watch Grey's Anatomy, can you honestly tell me there's not a lot of negative programming around just terrible relationships, like cheating? And like, I've only watched a couple episodes while my wife was watching it, and I was like, man, how do you watch this show? But they're in men's shows too, right? There's all like the like just sleeping with tons of women. They are going from place to place. I mean, they're in shows like Friends and like How I Met Your Mother, right? These type of shows may be funny, but there's a lot of programming within them, and it's by design. um it's very much by design. What you got to understand is that um all this information is known, about the subconscious mind, how it works, how it's programming you. We're not taught this information for a reason, and that's a whole nother podcast. But really, it's because we're easier to control, to manipulate when we don't know what's going on. There's a quote from Max Major, who's a mentalist, um, who's a very smart man in the area of subconscious programming, because he is able to program so many people on an immense level. And he has this quote where he says, "The reason why advertising works is because no one thinks it works on them." That, and because the subconscious mind is always absorbing the information. So you see billions of dollars being spent on advertising. You see billions of dollars being spent on product placement. Look at around at TV shows and movies. How much product placements are there? Is there Starbucks coffee in the thing? Is there some like Bud Light or whatever type of alcohol in the movie, right? Some Jack Daniels, whatever it may be. some Seagrams, whatever. Right? There's always something being advertised within these movies because companies know that this is how it will get into your subconscious mind. And we're not taught this information in school, which is absurd to me because this information literally should be taught to everyone. And if you don't understand how this part of your mind works, how can you really be programming yourself towards your best life? You can't. And so you just be open to the onslaught of programming because you don't understand really how this works. You think everything's there for entertainment, but it's for entrainment. You think that the TV is there for fun, but they call it TV programming for a reason. There's a story of an ancient group of peoples from a country called Media, and these ancient groups of peoples they used the wood of the holly tree to mind control people, to get them to do what they want to do. And nowadays we have Hollywood and we have the media controlling people through the same type of mind control. And it's the truth. Look at the news. The news is constantly programming us towards uh certain things as well. Look at all the magazines. Look at all the magazines programming women to act a certain way, to have certain sex lives, to have certain dating styles, right? Look at all these apps we have, these dating apps with one night stands. We're literally creating a culture where our subconscious mind is going to be drawn to not serious relationships, to relationships where we're just going to cheat on each other, so relationships where we're just going to swing around from partner to partner, right? That's really not what we as humans are meant to do. We're meant to connect that connection, that love, and be able to be with a partner and to really build a life with them. That is amazing. That is something that I believe all people deserve to have, and I hope all people get to experience that, to be able to love someone, to be able to experience something where someone's there to support them, to love them through all their faults, to try to help them become their best selves, right? Not encourage them down a path of darkness and make them worse, but to be help programming them towards their best life. And a great place to start is looking within. Why are you choosing these type of people? How maybe are you programming other people? What type of effect are you having on other people? you know how are you acting within relationships? You may need to heal something within yourself too, so these type of people don't find themselves attracted to you, right? Are you always that person who's trying to save other people, right? It might seem like a noble thing, but if it's at the expense of yourself, it's not a very good thing. They always tell you you need to take care of yourself before you help other people, right? You need to heal yourself before you go into a serious relationship. I'm a firm believer that it's very important to address what's going on in your life as soon as possible, to face your demons, to face that programming you have. And to do so, you need to start to look inwards. You need to start to possibly meditate, to do some hypnosis, do some regression therapy, to maybe ask someone for help. Because I know for me, that's where I was able to address and to, start to really understand why I was self sabotaging, why I was choosing maybe the wrong partners, why I was always going back to alcohol and all sorts of things. So reaching out for someone else can be a tremendous help. And I'd be more than glad to be that person to help you, you know, understand more about the subconscious mind, how it works, to be able to start to reprogram yourself, to be able to make it so that you're not dating someone like that again, to ensure that you heal that part of you so you don't want to date anyone like that again, so that they're not attracted to you, and so that you start to create your better life as soon as possible. And you know, I talked about regression therapy. So there's type of different therapies. And really this has to do with like hypnosis. And if you hear hypnosis, maybe you're thinking, I don't want to cluck like a chicken. I don't want to dance on the stage and do something silly or stupid. Um, The type of hypnosis I'm talking about is putting yourself into a relaxed state so that you can start to speak to your subconscious mind on a better level and reprogram yourself faster. So that's what hypnosis is when I'm referring to it. And this type of hypnosis is very powerful. It can help you actually go back to the time maybe you got these programs, and you can to regress back to those spots, and you can see them again. You can see them again. You can experience them again without getting hurt, and you can be like, "That's why I'm doing these things. That's why I have this. I'm gonna let this go. It's time for me to let this go." And you can go back to that time and give that back to the person to stop and say, "No, no more. I'm done," and heal yourself and move forward. So if you're trying to look for someone better in life, you need to start giving yourself new programs. And so this is where we'll talk about some solutions here. So what are some ways you can give yourself some new programming? Well, you can make sure you're watching movies that have good relationships in them. If you're going to be watching movies, I recommend don't watch too much TV at all, for the whole reason that they are programming you, and that things are getting worse and worse as far as TV shows and movies as time goes on. There's a progression of it just getting darker and more sadistic and more, it's a lot more cheating and just a lot of drug abuse and all that stuff. So be careful how you're watching, how much stuff you're watching. You can start to listen to more podcasts where they're talking about having healthy relationships. You can start to read books about having healthy relationships. You can start to identify what would you want in your ideal partner consciously. If it wasn't that person that you keep getting attracted to, who is the person you'd be attracted to? Write that down. Write down in a journal entry. Write down, who your ideal partner is. What do they look like? What do they sound like? What do they feel like? What do they taste like? What's a possible name for them? Right? How old are they? What color hair do they have? What color eyes do they have? Right? Start to write, what's their type of personality? How do they act around you? Do they help you? Do they help support you? Do they help move you towards your best life? Do they encourage you? Do they, not put up with any of your bullshit and tell you, "Hey, we need to get this stuff done"? What does your ideal partner do? Do they accept you for who you are and love you and support you, while at the same time trying to, encourage you to grow and to get better and to get stronger? Once you have that ideal person in your mind, your subconscious mind has something to hold on to, saying, "Hey, this is actually, I have an ideal. I have something in my mind." It can start to formulate something like, "Hey, this is maybe something else we could do," right? If you haven't done that before, then all your subconscious mind has is that ideal person who's maybe broken, who's toxic, who's abusive. They have that in the mind. You have to give it something new, and then you have to keep it going with repetition. So you need to start listening to good, positive podcasts that talk about these sort of things, like this one. You need to start to, maybe what I recommend doing is taking that ideal person like entry you wrote, and to look at it every single day and night. And if you do it right before you go to bed and wait before you wake up, that's gonna be extra powerful, because when you're going to bed and you start to wake up, your mind is going into a theta state. So if you're thinking about that person as you're going to bed and as you're waking up, your subconscious mind was going to likely get programmed with that thought in your mind. "Hey, this is the person we're looking for. This is the new program we have. We should look for this type of person," right? And then you're more likely to see that type of person. You're more likely to be drawn to that type of person and to recognize that type of person. Even if you don't consciously recognize them, your subconscious mind is going to be drawn to them, and you're going to be more likely to start to speak to them, to ask them out, right? This is the way it works. And you can, if you're going to be doing affirmations, if, trying to focus on positive thoughts, or, focus your thoughts on getting away from that type of person, you want to focus on what you do want and avoid telling yourself what you don't want, right? You don't want to say, "Oh, I don't want someone who's abusive to me," because your subconscious mind doesn't hear that. For example, I want you to not picture a pink elephant balancing on a lime green rug with a purple ball in its mouth. or its trunk, and it has a red top hat on, right? You likely pictured that in your mind, despite the fact that I told you not to do it, right? Because your subconscious mind doesn't understand the negatives like that. It doesn't understand, hey, it's telling me not to do this. It just says, hey, we talked about this. We mentioned this. That's another thing we mentioned. It's just been repeated again, and I've seen it repeated this here, and here, and here, and here. So now it's even more repeated. That's even a safer card. That's a safer thing for me to do. And so as you start to do this, you can start to reprogram yourself more and more and more. And the idea is to make it so that the path of least resistance, which, nature always takes the path of least resistance. You can think of like a stream. A stream is always going to go down the path of least resistance, right? When it gets a block, it's going to try to find a new path of least resistance, and it'll start going on the new path of least resistance to keep flowing, right? So what is your path of least resistance right now? And when you can think of path of least resistance in your mind, is there's one brain neuron and another brain neuron. And every time you have those thoughts, every time it's repeated, it creates a path. And it gets reinforced and reinforced and reinforced, right? So your goal is to make it so another path in your mind from point A, from, let's say this is the dating point, to the person who's your ideal person, that image, that creation, that manifestation that you have, that you wrote down in the journal entry, that person is now your new path of least resistance. So do everything in your power to make sure that happens, with repetition, by thinking about them constantly, by thinking about them times when you're going to bed, when you're waking up, right? And believe that it can happen. Give yourself those thoughts. Tell yourself you deserve it. Love yourself, appreciate yourself, and focus on healing yourself. And before you know it, that person's going to show up in your life. You're going to be healed. You're going to be working better, and you're going to have an amazing, beautiful relationship. And that's what I hope you're able to do. If you like this video, please give it a like. Please give it a subscribe. Please share it. Please give me a comment if you have any ideas of your own. If you just want to thank me for the content. If you disagree with me, sure, let me have it. Tell me why you disagree with me. And thank you so much for listening. My name is Tanner Dagenet. This is Power Up Self-Sabotage Solutions, your guide to overcoming self-sabotage and to be able to make your life better on all fronts. So hope you all have a good rest of your day, and follow me for more content. Thank you.